I tested 10 of the most popular track saws and we're going to rank them from worst to first. Let's go. Over the last year or so, I have tested 10 of the most popular track saws on the market because I wanted to find out what was the best for most people. And in this video, we're going to go through each one of their pros and cons to help you make a better buying decision so you can pick the best saw for you and your shop or job site. We're going to rank them from 1 to 5 on these 6 categories. Number 1, the build quality. How well are these made, including their tracks? Number 2, the power. Are these powerful enough to cut through the woods you're wanting to cut through? Next up, dust collection, because that is important when you're talking about a track saw because you're cutting a lot of plywood with these things. We're also going to rank them on adjustments as well as features and compatibility. Let's go. Bringing up the bottom of the list at number 10, I'm going to pick the Grizzly Track Saw here for a few reasons. I'm not mad at it, I was just a little disappointed at the performance as well as some of the problems that I had out of the Grizzly Track Saw. Now, it's not an awful track saw that nobody can use, but there are some things on here that I think you should be aware of before purchasing the Grizzly Track Saw. First off, it's an appealing price on this Grizzly Track Saw, just over $200 regular price, and it often goes on sale for a little bit less than that, but you get enough track to cut a 9-foot strip. So you're getting enough track to cut a full sheet of plywood without any issues. The problem is when I unbox this, the tracks are poorly made. The splinter guard on them was barely on there or not on there at all. The adhesive they're using is not a good quality. It was just falling off. Like you literally just was falling off coming out of the box. That was very disappointing. On the saw itself, I found it a little bit awkward to use based on all the other ones I had tried previously. The handle design was a little bit more upright, so it was really uncomfortable to use just starting out. It felt weird. It was much different than the others that had a little bit more forward-leaning style handle. It seems minor, but it is very noticeable when you get it in your hand. Another thing I noticed on the Grizzly is the dust port just would not pivot. Not easily anyway. You literally had to bear down on it to make that thing turn. Most of these other saws, those things just turn with ease so that your dust extractor hose doesn't get tangled up. I was kind of disappointed by that. The overall fit and finish of the Grizzly was fairly nice. It looked nice, it felt nice. The problem is it just wasn't executed very well. One thing I noticed was the height adjustment on this was kind of sticky. Wasn't really my favorite, and the shoe on it did have quite a bit of deflection in it, and we saw that show up when we started cutting things that was out of square, especially the thicker materials. Another thing was the blade change. It will not lock in a blade change position like most other saws so that it gives you access to that arbor nut, and you wind up having to plunge it down, plus trying to push the blade lock, plus trying to it's really cumbersome and it's really very frustrating, especially if you need to change the blade very often. And another issue I had was getting those tracks perfectly lined up. Most of the time, if you're joining tracks together, it goes together pretty good. You use a straight edge or something to line those up, which I did with the Grizzly, but it was still sticking and it took me a little bit to get that worked out. Now, as far as ranking this, as far as build quality goes, I gotta give it a 1 out of 5, and it's really disappointing because I really wanted to like this saw at this price point. But based on the things that kind of issues I've had with it, I had to rank it a little low. As far as power goes, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. It did all right, but I did feel it bogging a little bit on even plywood. On the thicker cuts, like the thicker walnut, it absolutely starts bogging, and then on bevel cuts, it just did not like that at all. Dust collection, though, was fairly decent for a saw in this price point. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. As far as adjustments go, 2 out of 5. This is the raise and lower adjustment's a little jinky. I didn't care for that. It does have a nice little extra feature where it's got a track clip, basically an anti-tip feature. I do like that they added that on there, plus the riving knife is also a nice add-on. As far as compatibility goes, I'm gonna give it a 2 because for whatever reason it wouldn't work on my WEN track, but it does interchange with the others like Festool and Milwaukee. Not sure why it wouldn't fit on that WEN. Next on the list is the Ryobi Track Saw. This is a cordless track saw in the popular 18-volt Ryobi platform. So if you're in that platform, this is something you might be interested in, but you do need to know a few things about it first. First and foremost, it feels like a Ryobi tool. They're fairly well made at this price point. You're getting a nice saw for certain applications, but there are some where it really does struggle. And there are a few features here that I wish they would have addressed along the way. First and foremost, this saw is not compatible with any other brand of tracks. It has its own proprietary set of tracks, and that's kind of a bummer. Plus, they are very short. When you buy this as a kit, it comes with like 2 22.5-inch tracks so that you can cut a 55-inch, basically a cross cut on plywood. I do wish that it would come with a 55-inch track. There may be bundles available now, but there wasn't when I initially reviewed this. As far as dust collection goes on the Ryobi, it's okay. It's not like the worst of the worst, but it's not the best either. One thing to note is most standard dust extractor hoses does not fit that Ryobi port, which is kind of problematic if you have a dust extractor. As far as the power of the Ryobi goes, this is where it done pretty good. It cut through thick walnut without any issues, so long as you take your time. Only if you use the high output batteries. If you use the lower output batteries, this is where you'll see a major difference in that power. The problem is this saw does suffer from some major deflection issues, and that does cause some major issues with square cuts. As you can see here, it just can't cut those big, thicker pieces of wood very squarely. But as far as plywood goes, it does perfectly fine on that. So if you're just breaking down sheet goods, the Ryobi Track Saw might be perfect for you in your shop if you have the Ryobi platform. As far as cut depth goes, it does suffer a little bit from lack of cut depth if you're wanting to do bevel cuts. Not sure why you would try that on this Ryobi Track Saw because of the accuracy issues, but you can bevel cut with it. Thicker woods like this 2x, but it just didn't have enough oomph to go all the way through, or cut depth, not necessarily the power, just the cut depth. As far as adjustments go on the Ryobi, I didn't really care for the depth stop, much like the Grizzly. It is a little wonky and it does stick quite a bit. I don't care for that style if it's not executed correctly, which another saw in this list is done right. But these do suffer from that. So as far as build quality goes, I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5 on this Ryobi Track Saw. The power, 3 out of 5 because it is more powerful in my opinion than the Grizzly. The Grizzly is using like a 9 amp power motor, so it is quite underpowered. Dust collection, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 because the dust collection, when you get the hose connected, does work fairly well, but it just doesn't have that connection, so I'm gonna knock off some of that. As far as adjustments go, it's gonna get a 2 out of 5 because they are so hard to adjust. Give it a 2 out of 5 for extra features, just because it is in the Ryobi platform and you have so many tools to choose from if you're using that battery system. I think that is a good feature among tools when you're in that platform. And as far as compatibility goes, a 1. It's not compatible with any other tracks on the market or any other accessories, things like that, so we gotta give that the bottom of the barrel. Next up, we have the WEN Track Saw. Now, I have reviewed both the corded and the cordless on this channel, but we're specifically talking about the cordless track saw here because they're both fairly similar, but I did use the cordless more recently. Now, the WEN Track Saw does come with some nice standard tracks, but where they're cutting corners, in my opinion, is on the underside. It's just not as sticky as other tracks that will just stick to your material without having to use clamps, especially if you're trying to use it on plywood. Sheet goods is where you're using these track saws the most. But as far as the quality of the tracks go, the aluminum part is just fine. It feels just like and looks like and acts like all the other tracks on the market. First of all, let's go over what's good about the WEN Track Saw. First, if you're cutting plywood, this is one of the better cordless track saws just for plywood. There are some problems that we'll talk about later for any other woods. The adjustments on here aren't the greatest. I don't care for these at all. Matter of fact, the depth stop adjustment just sticks like the other two, but the problem is it doesn't lock into place as well, so I tightened this up and it literally moved on me during a cut. That could be dangerous and cause a kickback. I was very disappointed by that and don't like that at all. And this does not have a riving knife. I do like riving knives and anti-kickback if available. But this does have anti-tip, which I do appreciate on here. Just the adjustments and things on here are just a little bit jinky for me. I didn't really care for them. The WEN does have a scribe cut feature, which I do like to have when you're cutting plywood. It will help you prevent tear out on those veneers, things like that. It's always a nice feature to have on a track saw. And you can tell when you start looking at the markings and things on this saw that it just isn't as refined as even some that ranked lower than this saw. It looks very cheaply made straight out of the box. However, it does have an all metal construction, the metal base, the metal side, unlike the Ryobi that has that plastic base. This does have variable speed, which neither of the previous two had that feature. As far as dust collection goes on this WEN, it is awful. It is not good at all. I don't recommend this one if you're worried about dust. To me, the saw does feel slightly underpowered, and as far as battery life goes, I only made a few cuts with this on 2 full charged batteries, and it ran out of juice. I had to recharge. And speaking of charging, it comes with 2 batteries, but there's only 1 charge at a time, so you can't simultaneously charge these. So if you're looking for speed, you'll have to get more batteries in the WEN platform, and I don't know how many people are buying a bunch of WEN batteries. Let me know if you are. And last but not least, one of the main drawbacks of this saw is it is terribly inaccurate on your cuts, no matter if it's bevel or square cuts. There's just too much deflection in this saw to be an accurate saw on thicker cuts. For plywood, you'll probably be fine. If you're looking to cut thicker woods, this is not the saw for you. On the ranking on this saw, I gotta give the build quality a 1 out of 5. I just think it could be so much better. I don't think they're putting forth their full effort here. It's not good. It's too much deflection and the dust collection's poor. It's just overall, it's not a great built saw. The markings don't look that great. It's just poorly executed. As far as power goes, I'll give it a 2 out of 5. This is a cordless tool, but it has two 20-volt batteries, and one of the reasons I ranked it a little bit lower is because the battery life is lacking. As far as dust collection go, we're going to give this a 2 out of 5. It is lower than the other two. I think it does a worse job than the previous two we've mentioned. It could be better. As far as the adjustments go, I wasn't a fan of the way these adjust. It's just like those other two. I didn't like how it let go on me during the cut, so that was concerning. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, and I think I'm probably being generous there. As far as extra features go, it has anti-tip. I don't know if it's cordless, so if that's a feature, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. In compatibility, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. This track saw wouldn't work on my Festool track, but it will on Milwaukee and the WEN, and probably the PowerTech. They're basically the same thing, but for whatever reason, it wouldn't work on the Festool. Next up is the Triton Track Saw. Now, this one and the Kreg, there may be Kreg in this list. This one and the Kreg are very close in the way they operate and the way they perform. Now, the Triton is my pick as one of the better budget options in track saws that you can buy. It's not going to make first on this list, but it will make one of the better budget options. For under $300, this thing is a really nice saw, but it does have a few minor issues. First and foremost, out of the box, it looks impressive. The build quality is very nice on this saw. It does have a little bit of deflection, but will that matter on a thicker cut? We're going to find out. A few of the minor gripes I have here is the adjustments are a little bit sticky, like going to bevel cut or even raising and lowering the depth stock, much like all the others on this list so far. Those single pole depth adjustments are just a little wonky for me. I don't care for them. And getting it set just right on the track, tensioning, it's a little bit cumbersome having to do that to get it set just right. There is also no riving knife here. However, it does have anti-kickback, which is basically a tensioning knob that won't allow it to drive backwards, but will push forward with ease. My biggest gripe with this saw was the fact that it takes a little bit to spin up as far as getting to full speed, and then it takes forever to come to a complete stop. We're talking 8-9 seconds after you let off the trigger before it spins down. I don't like that. It's much like a bandsaw. It just keeps spinning and spinning.
Spin me right round, baby, right round. Rotors are good, sir.
As far as positive features go, for one, the dust collection is fairly good. It's not bad. It's probably on par with the Ryobi and the other ones we've seen in this list, other than the WEN that was really bad. This saw does have some nice features available to it where it has the anti-tip, the anti-kickback that we previously mentioned. The dust connection hose will fit in there if you have a dust extractor like this Festool. And the Triton is compatible with other tracks like Festool, Milwaukee, PowerTech, WEN, etc. One of the major bonuses of this saw is that it cuts square. Like really square. It has plenty of power to power through even thicker hardwoods. And when I made the cut through the thick walnut, everything come out square. You don't see that in a track saw at this price point very often. It's things like less than $300 without the tracks. This is a really good deal here if you're in the market for a budget track saw. As far as ranking goes, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 on build quality. I think it's fair. It's not one of the best of the best. It's also not the worst. It's middle of the road. As far as power goes, again, middle of the road. 3 out of 5 is where we're going to go with this. For the dust collection, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It's pretty good. It's not bad at all. And it could be better, but it also could be much worse. As far as adjustments go, I'm giving this a 2 just because everything kind of felt sticky. The depth stop, the bevel, and trying to get it tensioned on the track, it just could be much better there. Extra features, we got variable speed, we got anti-tip, we got anti-kickback. We're going to give this a 3 out of 5. As far as compatibility goes, 4 out of 5 because it works with your standard accessories like the TSO square. It also will ride on any of the standard tracks. Next up is the Kreg Track Saw. I recently reviewed this because I wanted to know, was this still the king of budget track saws? We put this thing through the paces to figure out if that was true. First, it comes with a 63-inch track, if I'm not mistaken, so it's longer than most other standard tracks at 55 inches. And why that's important is if you're doing a lot of cross-cutting on sheet goods that are 4 foot wide, this 63-inch track gives you plenty of space before and after the cut. I do like that. And speaking of their tracks, they are well-made tracks. I like them a lot, and they come with this end guard so that you don't damage your hose or your cord. Kreg also has a riving knife. It is variable speed, has anti-kickback, which I really liked. So this does have the riving knife plus the anti-kickback. You're getting double protection there. The dust adapter works with my Festool hose, which I always give a little extra credit for. This does have that single pole depth adjustment, but this one actually works better. It slides easily, it locks into place, it doesn't move after you lock it into place, and the bevel adjustments work well on this saw as well. And speaking of adjustments, this is one of the easiest saws to adjust to the track that I found. Couple simple small turns of those knobs and it locks right in on the track without being too tight. But speaking of locking in on the track, this does not have anti-tip, which I really wish it had. This does have a splinter guard that will drop down, basically down to the stock, that will help prevent splintering, especially on when you're cross-cutting on your sheet goods across the grain on veneer. This saw had plenty of power to cut through anything I put through it, and it also cuts square when you adjust it properly. So that's one of the things you need to do. Make sure it's nice and square and then make your cuts. It does beautiful work. One thing to note on the Kreg is it cuts in the opposite direction of other track saws. That could be a positive, it could be a negative, depending on how you view left or right. We're gonna give it a 4 out of 5 on build quality because the Kreg is well made, which you should expect at this price point, which is typically $3.99, sometimes less if it's on sale. That does include the track though, so you're getting the track and the saw for that price. As far as power goes, we're giving it a 3 out of 5. Dust collection, we'll give it 3 out of 5. It does a pretty good job with dust collection as well. We're giving this a 4 out of 5 on adjustments because the ease of adjusting this saw is really nice. You can adjust the depth, the bevel, on track, everything works like it should. As far as extra features go, we'll give this a 3 out of 5. It does have the Ryobi knife, it does have the splinter guard, and it does have the anti-kickback. Compatibility, we're going with a 1 out of 5 because it runs on its own track in the wrong direction from everybody else. But overall, there are accessories that will fit this out there in the market. They're just not compatible with the other tracks on the market. Next up is the RIDGID Track Saw. Probably one of the better cordless track saws in this price range, in my opinion. First and foremost, when you take it out of the box, you know you got a quality tool. This thing is well made. All metal construction, base and the side, and everything just has a nice fit and finish, which you would expect from RIDGID tools. I really do like RIDGID tools. That's the first cordless tools I ever purchased. A few things I love about this track saw is the depth adjustment, is that push button style that locks into place when you get it set. These are some of the easiest style depth adjustments that you'll find on track saws. The bevel adjustment is also very nice. It also has a positive stop at 22.5 and then a 45. I really like that positive stop feature on that 22.5. And these knobs are really robust, really well made, and they just work well. This does have an anti-tip feature as well as a riving knife that works as it should out and under the blade, unlike the Ryobi that just kind of goes with the blade and you can't really plunge with it. This you can plunge, uses a plunge saw. This also has kind of a unique feature I haven't seen on any other saw. There's a depth cut window that will show you about how deep you're going to cut just at a glance on that side there. Probably one of the more impressive things about this saw is the power. Had plenty of power to cut through both bevel cuts and 90-degree cuts on thicker woods, and it cut accurately. Perfect 90-degree cut and a perfect 45-degree cut. This board that I cut a 45-degree on actually had a little dip or cup in it, but you can see on the 45-degree, perfectly 45. A couple of things I will knock it on is compatibility. These are proprietary tracks that you get. They won't even work with the Ryobi tracks, but at least RIDGID does offer that 60-inch track, which is what you'll want if you're buying one of these. Dust collection on this thing is awesome. It works really, really well. I like that they really took the time and made sure the dust collection was great. Now, one knock on it is right here where the dust hose goes in. It's not deep enough to hold that in there firmly, so what winds up happening is that hose comes off. You'd probably need an adapter of some kind, but otherwise it does collect the dust well. As far as ranking goes, I give it 4 out of 5 on build quality. It's that good. This is one of the better feeling saws, especially at this price point. Probably one of the better budget option saws that is built this well. Power, we're gonna give it a 3 out of 5. It does have plenty of power to cut through anything. The reason I rank it just a little bit lower is if you don't use the higher output batteries, it will slug a little bit, be a little sluggish. And the higher tooth count blade, it could use a lower tooth count blade if you're gonna be ripping a bunch of thicker woods. But for sheet goods, things like that, even the thicker woods that have plenty of power, I would like it to have just a little bit more, just a little. Dust collection, as stated, phenomenal. 4 out of 5. Really, really good dust collection, especially out of saw in this price range. And another extra feature of the RIDGID is the fact that you're in the RIDGID battery platform. I'm gonna give it a point up for that. So the total here is 4 out of 5. You got anti-tip, you do have the Ryobi knife. I like the little clear cut window. Nobody else is doing that. I like that they thought about that. And this plunge adjustment is awesome. Please, everybody do that. And compatibility, we're back at the 1 out of 5 because it works with RIDGID and nobody else. They don't like people. I don't know why. They don't even like his brother Ryobi. Next up is the DeWALT, and I'm gonna not even bury the lead here. This is the most powerful track saw that I have used to date. This bad boy got some power. This thing is a beast. If you need power to cut through stuff, just get the DeWALT 60 volt. You're gonna be powering through anything you wanna cut through. The good on this track saw is the dust collection is really nice. It works equally well as some of the other ones that are even above it in this ranking system. This also has a Ryobi knife plus the anti-kickback, so you're getting double the features there. I really do like it when they do that. It just gives me a little sense of peace. This is a variable speed, and one of the main things you'll notice on this DeWALT Track Saw is the fact that it's well made. It is a very nice, high quality tool, and you know that as soon as you get it out of the box. And speaking of boxes, it comes with a very well made storage box, much like some of the other ones on this upper list. When I first started, I didn't realize that that was even a valuable thing, but since I've wanted to get more organized, and if you transport your tools, you will appreciate a nice storage box for these higher end tools because you pay a lot of money for them, you want to get them, keep them protected, and this box will do just that. And it's part of the T-Stack system, so if you are in that platform with your storage, then it'll fit right in. Now for the weird, because this track saw is a little odd, such as myself. Now, it does plunge very oddly. It's kind of a weird motion the way it plunges, and you can tell that when you're plunging it if you've used other track saws. It's just a little weird. Does it matter? Probably not. It works just like all the other saws, it's just different. Kind of like me. I don't care for how it adjusts on the track because you have to use wrenches to adjust the tension on the track when every other track saw on the market, you're just using those thumb tensioners, whatever you call them. It just works better, it's easier, it's more convenient. Having to take the tool out and do that is just an inconvenience. And if you have to change the blade, it's really weird. It's like 3 different steps or actions you have to make all at once. You have to plunge it, you have to turn this knob thing. Like, it's just so cumbersome, they can make that easier. This has no anti-tip, which would be beneficial because when you're cutting, you don't want to have to worry about it falling off of there, and anti-tip is just one of those features, and a saw in this price range should have it. Another problem I have with the saw is the bevel indicator that shows exactly what degree you're on is too fat. It's done 8 too many donuts. It's just, you can't tell exactly where you're going to cut, and that is a major problem because when you go to cut 45s, you have to plunge the saw, hold it down, plus hold a square on there to try to get it perfectly lined up before you're able to make accurate cuts. But if speaking of accuracy, it is perfectly 90 at 90. You'll cut a very straight, very good square cut. And at 45, it will cut a 45-degree cut as well, but you have to set it perfect with your square because that indicator's too fat. I guess if you get it set once, make sure it's perfect, you could draw a line or something on there so you know exactly where it's at, but it's very hard to tell where that indicator is pointing to because it ate too many donuts. As far as tracks go, this track is a little odd again with this saw because you can use the saw in either direction. Doesn't matter. Flip the saw around, cut on both sides of the track. I kind of like that. At first I thought it was a little weird. It's like, why are they doing this? But this is a nice feature to have. And this saw will also work on Makita, Festool, PowerTech, and all the other compatible tracks. Let's rank it. Build quality, 4 out of 5 on this DeWALT Track Saw. Really, really nice. Power, I'd love to give this a 6 out of 5. It's that powerful. It is really good. We're gonna go with a 5, but it could go 6. Dust collection, 4 out of 5. This does really well, equal to some of the other ones in this category. Give it a 3 out of 5 on the adjustments, mainly because of the wrench deal where you have to adjust it to the track. I wish it was so much better. It could be easier, and the fact that the bevel indicator's fat, you lose points for that. Extra features, give it a 4 out of 5. I like now that it will use both ways of the track. I like how powerful it is. It is using the 60-volt platform of DeWalt's. I like that they gave you the added storage box on there because not a lot of saws do that unless you get up into the upper end, and the saw just works well. As far as compatibility goes, we'll give it a 4 out of 5 because you can use it on other tracks. Before we get into the final 3, the top 3 track saws on the market, in my opinion, in this price range. I know my fellas out there, it's outside my price range. I can't spend that kind of money for a saw right now, but these are the kind of the top 3 everybody's looking at, most everybody, 99% of people. So we'll give you the total of the budget level track saws, the ones that are under this, before we move on to this one. The Grizzly Track Saw come in at 13 out of 30. It did bring up the bottom of the list because of the reasons I already stated. Now the Ryobi Track Saw ties it at 13. The only reason I think that the Ryobi wins out over the Grizzly is the fact that you have that Ryobi 18-volt platform that you can get hundreds and hundreds of tools on, and I really do like a lot of their stuff. The WEN Track Saw comes in just a little bit ahead at that 13 out of 30 because of the price point. It basically ties with the other ones as far as points, but because it is such a good budget option, I'll give it a little leg up on the other 2. The Triton and the Kreg both come in at 18 out of 30. This is a dead heat. if I had to tell you to pick one, I would probably say just get the Kreg, mainly because it's just a proven saw. Bunches of people have had it over the years and it just works well. You can also use it with the Kreg adaptive cutting system. If you wanted to upgrade to that table that basically has a track on there, you can do all kinds of stuff with that. And there's a lot of accessories that Kreg makes that goes along with it. The build quality is a little bit better on the Kreg in my opinion, and the adjustments are quite a bit easier. They work better on the Kreg. I think it's just a little bit better. Let's go ahead and bump it up to a 19. I give it a 4 out of 5 on extra features, simply because you can get it with the Kreg adaptive cutting system, and that will level up this saw. The RIDGID comes in at 20 out of 30, and it's just slightly above that Kreg. And the only reason I think it edges the Kreg out, because both of them are using proprietary tracks, kind of locked in their own system, but you do get into the RIDGID battery platform, and they have tons and tons of tools that are really, really nice tools if you want to get into their batteries. I think the DeWALT sits in a kind of a weird place. I've ranked it 24 out of 30 because I think it kind of comes in between these top 3 and those lower models, just based on my experience with it. It's a little odd. I think that kind of puts a lot of people off. Us odd people usually do. And it's just one of those things that you're like, it doesn't fit in most people's shop. If you're a DeWALT fan, if you like being in a 60 volt platform, I think you'll be perfectly happy with that saw. But if you're not, and you're kind of used to using the other tools and you get the DeWALT, I'm not sure how much you're gonna like it. That's why I can't put it in the top 3. These are my top 3, the Milwaukee, the Makita, and Festool, in no particular order yet, but this Makita was a recent addition to the shop, and I was very surprised at how much I liked it because I had so many people to tell me to try it. I was like, man, a bunch of fanboys want me to try this Makita. I'm already a fanboy over here with these two. Am I gonna like the Makita? And the answer is yes. So let's rank these and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about each one. Now I'm trying to pick the best saw for most people and trying to remove the Festool fanboy out of my pocket, remove the Milwaukee fanboy out of my pocket, and give an objective answer here because I really do want to help you make a better buying decision so you're happy with your purchase. With that said, let's talk about the power of these. All of these use 18 volt batteries. The Makita and the Festool both use 2 batteries, although the Festool can operate on just one of those batteries, but at a reduced power. So if you just wanted to cut plywood and you only had 1 battery, then you could use the Festool. But where this kind of interesting is, the Festool comes with a single charger. So you drop 1 battery in there, you're charging the 1 battery, where the Makita comes with a double charger, so you can charge both of those batteries at the same time, and I like that. As far as track saw power goes, these all have about the same amount of power, powering through thicker cut on walnuts. As far as plywood goes, you're not gonna have any issues. These have plenty of power. They're absolutely not as powerful as the DeWALT, but they have plenty of power to do any task you're gonna wanna do with the track saw. As far as build quality goes, these are absolutely fantastic built machines that you're not gonna have to worry about. They're just well-made tools. If you bought any of these tools, you would be perfectly happy with the build quality. Dust collection goes, you're looking at top tier dust collection across the board here. Makita, Milwaukee, Festool, very similar dust collection, no issues at all. Is it 100% collected dust? No, but it's really close, and you're not gonna have to really worry about that if you have proper dust extraction. As far as adjustments go on these saws, they all adjust very similarly to the track. Both the Makita and Milwaukee have anti-tip, and the Festool does not. The Festool does have anti-kickback, which I really like. It's a really great feature, and no other track saw, as far as I know, other than Festool, has that feature. The Milwaukee does have a riving knife, and the Makita does not. However, I didn't really notice that I really missed it on the Makita while I've been using it. So I don't even know if that's really a major deal now. I just like having them on there just for peace of mind. As far as the adjustments go on these, the Festool and the Milwaukee are very similar. The Makita has a single pole adjustment, very similar to the Kreg and some of the lower end models, but this one is the best of the bunch. It is smooth transition. You don't have to worry about that at all. This does have a scribe feature. The Milwaukee has a scribe feature. I do prefer the way the Milwaukee and the Festool have the push button adjustment, and they have a fine tuning knob so you can really dial in the depth of cut. So if you're working inside a house, you're needing to cut flooring like right up to against the wall, you don't want to cut any deeper or whatever application you need there, you can fine tune these to be the exact depth. All 3 of these saws are variable speed and just overall just fantastic machines. Here's where I think these kind of get separated and where you can make your buying decision. The Festool has anti-kickback or you have to buy into the Festool battery platform, and there's just not a whole bunch of tools to choose from, and I think that hurts it in the long run. Both the Milwaukee and the Makita have a ton of cordless tools to choose from. It just depends on what you're going to be doing. Look at their platforms, look at those tools. Whoever has the most that you think you might want in the future, go with that one. Another feature that the Milwaukee and Festool has that the Makita does not is the splinter guard. I do like those. They do help with tear out, although I saw no issues at all when I was using this Makita cutting sheet goods. Perfectly clean cut. So is it an issue? Maybe, maybe not, but I do like having it on there. It's just like one of those things it's like nice to have. Both the Makita and Milwaukee have anti-tip. The Festool does not. Why do you not have that on your saw? I don't know, but you should. And both the Makita and the Milwaukee have a positive stop at 22.5 degrees and 45. The Festool is 0 and 45. Both of these have 0 too, but it doesn't positive stop at 22.5. One of the features that these three saws that a lot of the lower crowd doesn't have is the accuracy and how you can dial those in. The indicators are pinpoint. On the Festool, you'll see it has like a little line indicator, and on the Milwaukee and Makita, it's a point indicator. Unlike the DeWALT that ate too many donuts, it's just you couldn't get that dialed in. These are pinpoint, and the same goes with their depth adjustment. It's just a really nice way to dial these in. So this is how I rank these three tools. First and foremost, they all three get 5 out of 5 on build quality. I think they're all made exceptionally well. Really good made tools, you're not gonna worry about that. As far as power goes, they're very, very, very close. All three get 4 out of 5. I don't think you'll have any issues with power on these saws. Dust collection, we're gonna give them a 5 out of 5 because they are the top tier as far as this group goes. They are the best of what you're gonna get for dust collection with a good dust extractor. They work well. As far as adjustability, setting your depth, setting your bevel, all three of these saws are absolutely great at that. They're easy to work, they're easy to use. You get them set up, just go. 5 out of 5 for all three. As far as extra features go on all of these saws, they all have their strong points, but I will give a slight edge up to the Festool for that anti-kickback. This is the only one that has that. Give it a 5 out of 5. These get 4 out of 5 on extra features. But don't get mad, there's more to come. Compatibility, now all three of these will work on each other's tracks. That's good, but that's not the rest of the story. I give the Festool 3 out of 5 on compatibility for a reason in a minute. These get 5 out of 5 on compatibility for a reason, mainly because the price of the accessories that go along with Festool, if you're buying Festool branded stuff, is so much higher than the Milwaukee or the Makita, even if you're buying extra tracks, but mainly because of the battery platform. If you look at the cordless tool offering from Festool, and you get tied into the Festool batteries, there's just not a lot of compatible tools with their batteries. So that's why they get ranked a little bit lower, and these two get ranked so much higher because there's just so many more to choose from. With that said, this Festool comes in at a 27 out of 30. Pretty good, y'all. The Milwaukee comes in at a 28 out of 30 on this test comparison rating. The Makita comes in at a 28 out of 30, but there is a tiebreaker here that we're gonna break this tie. Now, how can we break the tie if they're so close? Well, I think what breaks the tie on these, if it matters to you, it matters to me, is the storage option. The Makita comes in a very nice box. Even their charger comes in a very nice box with this kit, with the track, but the storage insert inside the box is just a cheap piece of plastic. It's just crappy. Why would you do that? You've got a nice high-end tool here. Why are you putting a crappy plastic insert in there? Come on, you can do better than that because Festool does and Milwaukee does a really nice foam insert inside that pack out, and that's where I think the tiebreaker is, because it comes in a pack out, which is part of the pack out whole lineup where you can get other storage options that clip right onto it. I think that does set it apart very slightly, maybe a half a point. So this may be at like 28 and a half, maybe 28 and a quarter, and this was at 28. I don't know that you could go wrong with either one of these. Just choose the color you like and go with that. Whatever floats your boat and makes you happy. Either one of these. These are both absolutely amazing saws. No, I'm not giving up my Festool. I still love it. I think it's one of the best saws in the market. I did try to take my fanboy out of the pocket, remember, but I do think some of the limitations there with the battery offerings, the expensive accessories, I think that for most people, which is what I'm trying to do here, either one of these would be great. I do think the Milwaukee slightly edges it out, slightly. You tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. No matter which of the 3 track saws you choose, I think the Festool dust extractor is one of the best that you can choose for dust collection on these type tools. I'll link to my favorite in the description. The CT36 is probably the best bang for the buck one you can buy. Has auto on and off with your tool, or you can get the Bluetooth adapter and you can use it with any tool with just a button. It's what I got, love it. If you still don't know which one you want, Makita, Milwaukee review, click either one of those boxes, get you the big old virtual fist bump, watch the full reviews. may help make your decision easier. Good luck.